Crónicas del Antropoceno, la época humana y sus consecuencias, narrada en tiempo real.
Hola, ¿qué tal? Y bienvenidos a Crónicas del Antropoceno. Hoy tendremos un episodio especial con una entrevista uno a uno que tuve la oportunidad de hacer con el arquitecto Dykers. Él es el cofundador y codirector del afamado, multipremiado y prestigioso despacho noruego de arquitectura y paisajismo Snøhetta, que entre otros muchos proyectos icónicos en el mundo ha construido la nueva biblioteca de Alejandría, el memorial en las Torres Gemelas 11 de septiembre en Nueva York y el edificio que albergará el Museo de Ciencias Ambientales de aquí de la Universidad de Guadalajara. La entrevista es en idioma inglés, así que si te es de utilidad, también tenemos una versión subtitulada que subimos a nuestro canal de YouTube.
My name is Craig Edward Dykers. I'm an architect and I'm the designer of the building that we're in. We're updating the progress of the construction, but more importantly, finding solutions for issues that have come up since the last time we met. So we're here regularly. Well, to begin with, the name in Spanish is wonderful, Museo de Ciencias Ambientales, which if you're not a Spanish speaker, it sounds like ambient science, because as opposed to environmental science. And the idea that science is ambient, that it's everywhere, it's the air you breathe, is just a beautiful sort of insight in this weird translation that only occurs if you're not thinking very much about a correct translation. But it's in the root of the word, ambientale. So in a way, we began to realize with this project the value of just the air around us. This project is exposing the natural forces that we have to value in order to survive. And the problem is, because of the challenges, because of our disassociation with nature over the last 100 years or so in the industrial era, we've forgotten what nature really is. Most people only understand nature in a storm, when there's rain, or some kind of event where they experience nature, or they have a pet dog. That's kind of like nature. But otherwise, most people don't go out into the landscape, into the wilderness. Most people see a tree only in the context of an urban environment where they're evenly spaced. They might see birds or pets, but other creatures are unusual. Insects, obviously, they might see in a few birds, but food comes from an abstract place, a market wrapped in plastic, and you don't even understand that your food comes from nature, and actually much of the food isn't even particularly natural anymore, sort of processed. So all of that is taking us away from who we are as actual human beings, because we have millions of years of living in nature, and you don't erase that in 100 years. So inside of us, there are these kind of needs to communicate with nature, and this building and this museum is set up to connect people to nature in a way they can understand if they live in a contemporary urban world. That's been important for us for all projects that we're working on. It's had an influence on us. The first thing I would say is that although we call them works of architecture, they're just as much works of landscape architecture. My studio is a mix of landscape architects and architects, and we're always building a place and understanding a place through the eyes of landscape as well as the eyes of architecture. And in the future, this is going to be more and more important as habitat, biodiversity, and issues regarding climate are all affecting the landscape, and likewise the things we build, the buildings we make, affect the landscape and the climate around us. So I would say if we're successful, people will begin to learn this very intimate connection between these two worlds. Up until now, we tend to see them separately. We come to a place, we make it flat, get rid of everything that's there, and we stick a building on it. furthermore, that building is composed of materials that are brought from other places all over the world. So if you imagine this building exists as a series of places very far away where the materials come from, you can almost see a bunch of holes in the earth that equal to the size of this building. So we also have to take care of all of those other places in a larger system. The most important consideration when understanding how we can positively affect the environment is not relying on technology or somehow mechanical solutions. The most important consideration is to change people's minds about how they live. If we don't manage to control human nature, we won't be able to manage Mother Nature. You have to deal with humans first. And once we do that, we can open up our minds to different ways of living, changing our understanding of comfort so that it doesn't have to be extreme comfort at all times, changing our understanding of simplicity, that it's not necessarily a bad thing. Most of us today tend to think that if it's simple, it's kind of silly or boring. But it doesn't have to be that way. We can find beauty and delight in simple solutions that are healthy for the environment. And finally, I would say that we have a situation where we always want to use more and more and more. Whether it's simple or not simple almost doesn't matter. We just want more. We go to a restaurant, we want more. We go to a building, we want more. We go to a concert, we want more. We ask the band to sing several hours after they've already finished. Everything is about more. And if we're able to change that feeling or that attitude that we don't always need more to be satisfied, this will also help change positively the way the world coexists with humans. When we started the museum, we wanted people to come here. According to Eduardo Santana, the director of the project for the programming and use of the building, he said to us right away, anyone that lives 15 minutes from here, whether they're poor or wealthy, should feel good coming here. And it's that short distance, just the neighborhood, that will give this place power. So we try to use natural phenomena rather than artificial phenomena to define a museum. This museum was built around the idea of water flow through a canyon, like the canyons that surround Guadalajara. The water moves and creates shapes that are unique, and everyone loves those shapes, whether you're poor or rich. You stand in a canyon, it's gorgeous, and you just feel connected to the world around you. And all of those same shapes and qualities of light define this museum. It's not about European style. It's not about one particular version of architecture. It's about nature and architecture working together. Now, that's not to say that we disregarded the traditional architecture here in Guadalajara. So Spanish colonial architecture is a big influence on the city for 300 or 400 years. And so the courtyard idea, these beautiful courtyards that you have here in the traditional buildings, are similar to the courtyards we have in this building. They're just not square. They're shaped by nature in their appearance, but they house the same function. They bring people together. They allow them to feel good. They're shady and intimate. They're not big. All of that helps. I love Mexico. It has such an unusual spirit. I like to say that Mexico has a kind of spirituality without being silly about it, or without being sort of overly institutional or cliche. There's a spirit inside of people. Even if it's religious, it's an authentic kind of spirit, and I like coming here because of that, and you see it in so many things. Also, the Mexican people are very inventive. They find ways to solve things, maybe because there's not always is there a lot to have to solve things. So they find very interesting ways to minimally solve things. All of that's inspirational. But that's aside from this project. With this project, it's been intriguing to see the fortitude, the commitment that people have had to make sure this thing gets built, because it's a hard process. Working on a commercial project is different than working on an institutional project like this. Commercial project, you build the financing and you spend it and it's efficient and it's built. With an institutional project, there are conflicting politics, people come and go, the politicians change, the leaders change, everything changes, climate is changing at the same time, so, it takes loyalty. And this group here has it. They have not stopped. But no, I love the food here, and of course the mezcal and tequila is just a great variety. So that's a given. I love walking the streets in the center. As an architect, I love the way they use the old lava rock and they smooth it. It feels like a baby skin. It's beautiful. And the way it's carved into these perfect shapes, and they've held their shape for over a century, some of these pieces. Those are beautiful. And of course, the smaller streets that you can walk down. And then in recent years, seeing the changes in the city, there's good architecture in this town, good modern architecture. Well, in general in Mexico, there's good modern architecture. It's better than in the United States. There's just a sensibility about contemporary architecture that's very authentic. It's authentic here. It's not a kind of superficial architecture. It's very powerful. Yeah, I mean, if I were to look at maybe a problem, well, it's like any major city anywhere in the world today. The growth is not very well understood. And everybody tries to plan the growth around artificial things like buildings and roads, things like that. They don't look at natural systems enough. And finding ways that natural systems can be integrated into urban growth is not on the radar in a lot of places because those things don't make money. It's the real estate development and buildings. Buildings make money. Landscape doesn't make money in people's minds. However, and I'm seeing this now in the United States and other countries, people are realizing you can make money from landscape because if it's a good landscape, your building looks a lot better. And they can make more money off of that. And if there's more people around the building because they enjoy being outside around your building, that raises the property values. So it is possible to see the link, but in the past everyone thought, I have to pay for that and I get money from this, and that's a problem also here in the city too, but it's true for many cities. So we have environmental sustainability. Obviously when it comes to economy, there's financial sustainability, and when it comes to people, that's cultural sustainability. How do you sustain, regenerate, and enliven communities and those that experience a place that you've created into the future? That's cultural sustainability. And our process is to think about what types of things will allow people to feel that this museum or any building we make belongs to them, not to us. And I'm always interested in how many people know of all the buildings we've designed and don't know who designed them. If you compare that to the star architects that we're often associated with, more people know the names than they know the buildings that they designed. For me, it's a badge of honor at some level. Of course, we like to be known for our work, but it's a badge of honor to know that people know about so many of our buildings, and they've sort of put the author on the side because they feel they belong, that it's theirs, they belong to that place. There are different ways to do that, to give the sense of ownership to the user as opposed to the architect and designer. And we do that by making comfortable spaces that have good acoustics, for example. Acoustics are an extremely important part of giving authority to people. If the acoustics work very well in a space, people will feel great and they don't know why. They're just, this is good. And the same is with light. So we try to have as much daylight as possible so that people feel the warmth of the sun, and that helps them feel that they belong. Sometimes it's color. And in this project, there'll be one of the courtyards that will be filled with a mural that will be lively and colorful, whereas the rest of the building is rather neutral. That life of color is also what defines Mexico. It's a colorful, beautiful, lively place with all kinds of understandings of a rich array of color in the landscape and in the places we experience. So that will help. I could go on. I could talk about that for a long time.
Esto fue Crónicas del Antropoceno, una producción del Museo de Ciencias Ambientales de la Universidad de Guadalajara. Gracias por escuchar.